Okay, now we're going to go through a series of variable types in R. The first one are vectors. So what a vector is it's a list of elements of the same type. And you can make vectors in a whole range of different ways. And so we're going to go through all these different ways. And hopefully that'll make sense to you. When we're actually doing statistics, we'll use some ways more than others. But you'll probably come across all of them throughout this course. So one way that we can create vectors is using the combine function in R, which just has the value c. So for example, we could create a vector of numbers. So we could call this vector numList and assign to it, here we're going to combine the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And here we have a comma separating everything that we're combining into this vector. So again, you should enter this into the R command prompt. And then if you type numList and hit enter, it's going to show you that that's our list of numbers. Right? Pretty easy. So we've combined the C command, the C function combines values into a single vector. When we're dealing with numbers, you can also, or specifically integers, you can use the colon to indicate all integers in between two values. So for example, if we want to assign to a variable numList the values 1 through 5, we can just type 1:5, and it's going to assign to this vector all the integers ranging from 1 to 5. So now if we type numList and hit enter, it's going to show us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should mention that here we're assigning different things to the same variable name, and R will overwrite variables with new values if you assign them, and it's not going to give you a warning. It won't say, hey, this variable is already being used. So you have to be careful, because R won't warn you that you're overriding a variable. It's just going to happily do that for you. Or we can combine both of these options. So we can use the C for combine. So we can combine 0, then use the colon for 1 through 5, then 6, then 10, and then 11 through 13. And so then if we type numList, we'll see it's done that. So it's given us 0, it's given us 1 through 5, it's given us 6, 10, and then 11 through 13. You can also generate vectors with the sequence function, and this is called with the command seq. And there's two ways that you can make vectors with this sequence function. The first way is you can specify by how much to increment a list. And so an example of that is here, is we can create a numList using the seek function. And so with seek, you do from a value to another value. And one way we can do it is by specifying how to go from our lowest number to our highest number. So here we're saying make a sequence from 1 to 5 by 0.5. So this means it's going to go from 1 to 5, incrementing by 0.5. So then if we type numList and hit enter, it's going to be 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and so on, right? So we've made a vector using our sequence function, specifying the lowest number, the highest number, and by what steps we want to increment that list. So that's one way to use the sequence function. Another way we can use it is to specify how long we want the vector to be, and then R will increment it appropriately. So here, again, we're using our numList variable name, and we're making a sequence from, let's say, 10 to 100, but we want the length of this vector to be 5. And so what R is going to do is it's going to increment these appropriately to make this vector of length 5. So now if we type numList and hit enter, our first value is going to be 10, then 32.5, 55, 77.5, 100. So what it's done is it's gone from 10 to 100 in 5 steps of equal length, right? So it divides that space up evenly when you specify the length. So those are the two ways you can define a vector using the sequence function by either specifying what to increment by, or by specifying how long you want the sequence to be. Another way that we can create a vector is with the replicate function. And this, you can call this function by typing rep. So again, here, we're making our numList variable and we're assigning to it, we're going to repeat 1, and then you specify how many times you want to repeat that or replicate that. So if we say 10, then our numList is going to have 10 ones. So again, you should be typing this into the R command prompt as we go. Okay, so now I want to move on to a very important part of variables, and this is their indexing. And this is how indexing is how we refer to particular parts of a variable. And so we can refer to specific positions of the vector using their number. So first we can make an interesting list. So let's go back to this command. So numList, we're going to assign to it a sequence from 10 to 100 and set length equal to 5. And so then if we type numList and hit enter, we can see this is our list. But now we can refer to particular positions, right? So the first position is numList, and then in brackets 1, and that's going to refer to 10. Similarly, numList and then putting a 2 in that brackets would refer to the value that's in the second position of that vector. Similarly, if we put a 3 in those brackets, that will refer to the value that's in the third position of that vector, and so on, right? So you should enter each of these in the command line and make sure that they give you what you think. So if we want to know, okay, well, what's the value in the third position of that vector, you can type numList 3, put a 3 in that brackets, and it'll give you the value in that position. Similarly, you could type numList 5, and it'll give you what value was in the fifth position of that vector. And so this is extremely powerful, right? Being able to refer to particular positions in the vector without knowing what the value is there, right? And we'll use this all the time, in programming. And it might seem weird for now, but believe me, you're going to get comfortable with it over time. So you can have a vector of any data type. So we can make a vector of letters. So we can call this letter list and assign to it, we can use the combine function. And now, if we want it to be letters, you have to put letters in quotes. And that's how R knows that you're referring to letters. And so now if you hit letter list and type enter, it's going to show you that it's a list of these letters. And then you can refer to vector positions in our letter list the same way that we did with our number list, right? So if we want to know what value is in the second position of our letter list, we can just type letter list and then put a 2 in those brackets, and it'll give us the value that's in the second position. Similarly, if we put 4 in the brackets, it'll give us the value that's in that fourth position, and so on. You can do that for any position. Okay, I'll stop there for now.